Welcome to At the Feed Store podcast with me, Erica Lance, where we talk farm, feed, and everything in between. From industry insights to customer stories, we're here to serve up real conversations straight from the heart of rural America.
So what the chicken, right? It's all about the chickens, isn't it? Talk about chickens. We love chickens. We love eggs. We love meat, all things chicken. So let's talk about some of the things that we talked about last year when we talked to Rachel Teller from Fertrell. We talked about our chickens. Everybody loves chickens. What's the big deal about chickens? Well, let's go through some of these items and see what highlights we have from this last reel that we went through with her, and what can we learn from this? What has happened since then? And what do we have going on here at Feeders Grain and Farm Supply?
Yeah, Fertrell, I've utilized it the entire time that I've had this business. We're just about at the 4-year mark. But prior to me taking over, we had this product for the Poultry Nutri-Balancer specifically because we have our feed mill. And so we mix our own chicken feed here, which I absolutely love that aspect of being able to make a chicken feed here. We know exactly what goes into it.
So we're going to talk about our chicken feed that we're making here, right? So we're talking with Rachel about that. And this chicken feed that we make and what all happens with that chicken feed. How are we balancing that chicken feed? How are we making it so that customers really need that chicken feed for not just the laying hens, right? So it's a 17% chicken feed. So we're talking about that right now when I'm zoomed in with Rachel. So with our chicken feed that we have, it's 17%. It has the additional vitamin B in it for your ducks. So it's not just chicken feed, it's a poultry feed. So that poultry feed is ducks. Maybe you want to do some laying turkeys. That's available, right? So our feed that we use is with the Fertrell balancers. Those Fertrell balancers are made in such a way for your chickens to digest them properly, whether or not they are utilizing it for laying hens, or maybe it's even your roosters that are in there with your chickens. So that brings up another topic. We're talking about our laying hens, right? Our laying hens are very crucial to everyone's existence because you want the eggs, right? But you need to make sure they are the correct balance of nutrition. You don't want to feed them too hot and then you're burning out your hens. You want to have some longevity, but we know that chickens aren't going to last forever. You'll have to replace them eventually. So when we look at some of our chicken feed that we have, there's so many different chicken feeds on the market. There's so many different opinions about chicken feed on the market. Some of the things that come up is, well, if this is a layer feed, I can't feed this to my rooster. Yes, you can, because there is some calcium in our chicken feed, but it's not enough to hurt your rooster. If your rooster is getting too much calcium, they'll just pass it. They're not going to absorb it and have additional issues. So that is why we have worked with Fertrell to balance a chicken feed, a 17% protein chicken feed that you can utilize for your entire flock. So let's look back. We'll talk a little bit through what she's talking about.
So can we talk about the nutritional differences potentially between a duck versus a chicken?
Sure, absolutely. So when it does come to ducks and chickens, they are fairly similar nutritionally.
Okay.
Most of our duck producers and duck farmers use our standard chicken rations and recipes that we have out there, with one exception. The main difference between ducks and chickens is actually their niacin requirement. Ducks and ducklings in particular have a much higher niacin requirement to help with their development and production and performance. And so that's really the main difference between what we recommend when we're creating rations for a duck producer versus a chicken producer. As I started to say, though, our duck producers can use our chicken rations. One, because our Nutri-Balancer is a well-balanced product that does have a lot of vitamins and minerals in it to begin with. We do formulate slightly higher than what the NRC recommends just because there is that range. And so the Nutri-Balancer alone does have a higher level of niacin to begin with. However, we do recommend adding another one of our products called RC Gold 4X.
Yes.
And so this product is specifically a vitamin concentrated product. It has a lot of fat-soluble vitamins, but it also does have the vitamin B complex in there too, which is where you'll find the niacin. It is also based with a lot more kelp, and so it's going to really help overall the animals there too. And so if you add 3 pounds per ton of a chicken feed, you'll get that increased niacin that meets the requirements for ducklings. As the ducks do get older, their niacin level requirements do kind of plateau and taper off a little bit, where that adult layer ration is acceptable to use. But we still recommend adding that 3 pounds of RC Gold in there for that added niacin, just for the benefit of the duck as she is, more mature and helps her overall.
So again, that's what we talk about with our layer feed that we have, is that we do add that RC Gold so that we can have it for the ducks. You can have it for the turkeys. So that's when we talk about our laying animals, right? So we're talking about our laying turkeys. We're talking about our laying hens and maybe even your laying ducks, right? So we can utilize that layer feed that we have for those classes, right? So it's not just a chicken feed. So going on from that, we start talking about babies, right? So that's where all things come from, is we've got to start with raising some chicks. What does that look like? And what requirements? Because everybody has their own opinions, which there is nothing wrong with that. Some people prefer medicated feed. Some people prefer unmedicated feed. So we talk about in here that if you are going the route of unmedicated, maybe you want to use the unflavored yogurt in the process, and what that looks like for making sure you're keeping your birds content, your birds are looking good, your birds are growing well, and really developing that microbe. You want those good bacteria, right, from the yogurt in there versus utilizing a medicated with like an amprolium in it. Some of the other things that we didn't necessarily talk about in here with her that I think is very important to call out is when we talk about having our chicks, we're getting our chicks, we're bedding our chicks. And we're thinking, okay, what do we need for bedding? What does this look like? At one point in time, I had a thought that I needed to utilize having cedar fiber, right? Because everybody thinks cedar fiber is very good. It's got a nice smell, keeps the overall aroma down, right, of your chickens. Not so much. It's not truly recommended because as a young bird, they have very sensitive lungs. And what can happen is, I got to reference my notes here, is actually cedar causes some inflammation in the airways and can cause some issues. So when you're thinking about bedding and you're just starting, okay, what's the process we need to go through when we're going to get our chicks? Really step back and think, we need to do some pine shavings, not necessarily I would not recommend doing the cedar just because there's that sensitivity with lungs. We want your birds to have the right start. So we don't want to compromise them in any way with having lung issues because of the sensitivity from cedar. I get it. I have issues sensitivity-wise with cedar, and I can see where it would be could cause some issues with the lungs. So those are some things to think about, and really ponder to yourself how you want to go from, all right, we had some laying hens. We know we're going to have to replace them. Now we have our chicks. What do our chicks look like? How do we need to take care of those chicks and get them started so that, chickens are not a cheap investment anymore. They're a rather spendy endeavor. And so we want to make sure when we get them that they stay alive. So we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to go through where Rachel and I converse back and forth with the method of using yogurt and what that looks like.
But now I've shaved off a week of production.
Yeah. I think we were right at, a lot of times it's that 6 to 8 week mark. Yeah. And I think we did ours right at 6 weeks. And when we were doing it, we decided we would do that this last year because the kids are getting old enough. And it was one of those things where it's like, okay, we're going to do this. It's been a long time since we had done it, but it's not the most enjoyable process. It's all about meat production, and broilers are a little messy. And just the big thing with them is keeping feed in front of them all the time, right? So I don't necessarily keep track of the amount. Obviously I know at the end how much I fed them, but I'm not weighing every day. This is how much. I just keep feed in front of them constantly, and also water.
Yes.
That's also a huge factor.
Yeah.
Now,
people don't think about how water is actually going to drive feed consumption.
Yes.
But, think about yourselves. If you are thirsty or you haven't had any water, you're not necessarily going to want to eat either. So water is a huge important thing too. And, even just keeping the feed in front of them, on average, again, with that corn and soy diet, we can estimate that it's going to take 13 to 15 pounds per bird to finish them out. Somewhere in that range, depending on how good they are at converting it and, the actual ratios of everything.
Yeah, definitely. It's a process and it does take a lot of feed, but at the end, it's so worth it, It's so worth it.
So you mentioned about a 19% broiler. And so I got started on talking about the two-phase feeding.
Sure.
The other option that we give producers as well is, same in your scenario, where you don't want to have to juggle different feeds and you don't want to have to figure out how much starter do I need, how much grower do I need. We do recommend doing a combined starter grower at about a 19.5% protein. Not as high as that starter, a little bit higher than what we would recommend for a grower, but still enough to help support that growth for that, 6 to 8 week period.
Sure. And now my question for you, and it might be a controversial topic, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. So when it comes to starter feed, a lot of people want medicated starter feed. I know you guys really don't push the medicated side there. So my question to you is, the unmedicated birds that you are helping with, do you see success with those and people having good luck is my biggest thing? Because again, it's sometimes that's the way we've always done it. So that's the way we will continue to do it. And not saying right, wrong, or otherwise, just I would like to know, based on what you've seen over the years through Fertrell, the success of the unmedicated all the way through.
Sure. So in general, most medicated feeds are going to be medicated with some sort of coccidiostat, which most commonly is going to be amprolium.
Correct.
Which is very harsh. It is a thiamine blocker. Thiamine, again, is one of those vitamin Bs, and it disrupts the life cycle of the coccidia by taking the thiamine out. But the thing is, by feeding the bird this amprolium, this thiamine blocker, it is also blocking their thiamine uptake as well. And so you can run into issues where you're seeing thiamine deficiencies in birds that are fed medicated feeds because they are susceptible to the side effects too.
Okay.
And so, yes, at Fertrell, we do believe in doing things better naturally.
Sure.
And you can have very good success without having a medicated feed. Again, making sure that your brooder is clean or as clean as possible, knowing that chicks are going to poop all the time and lots of stuff.
Yep.
And basic husbandry skills. So if you are running multiple ages of birds at the same time, you take care of the youngest first, and then you move your way up. That way you're not spreading anything from the older birds that might have a resistance already built to them.
Sure.
The younger birds that can't help fend things off. But also there are some natural remedies as well that you can utilize that are going to take place of the medicated feed. So again, the biggest thing is preventing coccidiosis from occurring in the brooder and from these young susceptible birds.
So let's just talk about that real quick. So she's talking about coccidiosis, right? And prevention of that. So now she's going to go through what the natural steps are versus utilizing that amprolium that a lot of us do use from a medicated feed standpoint.
So again, the biggest thing is preventing coccidiosis from occurring in the brooder and from these young susceptible birds. And so what we actually recommend is using raw milk or yogurt.
Okay.
Starting on day 3.
So again, that's day 3. So you're going to start on day 3 utilizing it.
Okay.
You can fill shallow pie tins.
Oh, okay.
With a low level of milk on day 3.
Okay.
You leave it in there for about an hour. Just
Okay.
let the birds consume as much as they want for an hour, and then you pull them.
Day 3 in a tin for an hour. So we're not talking about long term setting it out. She's talking about an hour and utilizing either raw milk or yogurt.
And you're going to do this on day 3, 7, 14, 21.
Okay.
3, 7, 14, 21. Those days when you're starting your chicks. Just remember that if you're not wanting to do the medicated side, but more the natural side with utilizing either raw milk or yogurt.
And that is what we recommend for our coccidia preventative.
And so that just basically promotes good health from a gut standpoint, right?
Yes.
Since that has all of the good bacteria in it, and that will hopefully fight and prevent the coccidia.
Correct. Yeah. And so the whole thing with coccidia is not to eliminate all of the protozoa,
Right.
because that will never happen.
Right.
Coccidia are just prevalent. They are,
Yes.
they're here. All animals have a low level to begin with.
Right.
We just don't want them to go crazy in the digestive system and go out of control. And so, yes, by having these good bacteria, the probiotics that maintain gut health, it helps keep the coccidia in check.
And when she talks about that coccidia and making sure that, it's going to have low levels, it's just naturally in the gut. But using your bedding as a way to keep it clean, to reduce the amount of spread that you can have. Because again, this is an investment for most of us when we go to get chickens, right? It's not a cheap endeavor for us to go buy chickens that are very, 1 or 2 days old, and we want them to live, right? We want to have the eggs. We want to eat the meat. So again, these are some preventative things that we can do to ensure that you have a healthy bird and that you can get whatever desired outcome you want from it. So we continue to talk about the broilers in this episode, and we talk about how broilers, with the feed that Fertrell has for balancing, that we then mix, we can utilize that as a consistent feed, that 19% broiler feed. Use that throughout the longevity of those broilers, because you're only talking 6 to 8 weeks for a broiler, right? Versus your laying hens. And people often come in and ask, there is definitely a difference between that broiler feed and then getting into your layer. So when do I transition from your starter feed to your broiler feed to your layer feed? Well, when we talk about that, we need to be paying attention to what our birds are looking like. Are your birds starting to feather? If they're starting to feather, we need to take them off the starter. We need to then go to the broiler feed. And then from there, if you're having laying hens, then they're feathering a little bit more. Once you get them there, then you can transition to your layer feed. So it's all a process and it's all a difference. And based on that application of whatever you're doing for those birds, whether it's for your chickens, your turkeys, or your ducks, there's many options, but we need to pay attention to what they look like, what their health is, how are they acting, and making sure we have that constant source of water in front of them. It's not just about the feed. The feed is very important, but the water is extremely important because without that hydration, they are not going to eat like you want them to. Therefore, they're not going to develop and grow the way you want them to. So these are all major factors that we're looking at and playing into, what's going on with our birds, what's happening. We got to pay attention. Are you hatching your own birds? So then you're hatching at different times. And that's where she talks about you got to take care of the younger ones first and then work up to the older ones when we're looking at health on birds. Because, your younger birds are going to be way more susceptible to getting sick and having issues. So again, we just sit back and go, holy buckets, there's so much about chickens, about ducks, about turkeys that we don't even think about, right? And so what I have been working on is just some quick little one-pagers that people can reference. I've got one that's raising baby chickens and, nutrition made simple. So just simple tools, simple little tricks that you can utilize for your chickens because it's a lot of work. All of it is, right? That's all part of farming. It is work. But how can we make it so it's easier for us to get through that small stage of chickens development, right? And so that we can have that productive chicken in the end and enjoy the eggs, right? So I've got raising baby chicks is one of them. So that just talks about, what it looks like from warmth, right? So what the temperature needs to be and how you slowly back off that temperature because you don't need that heat lamp in there the whole time. Just the feeding the aspect of water and why it's so critical. Natural gut support, we talked about that for the yogurt piece. So I've got that just in a little one pager about raising chicks. And what I've done from there is then I've moved over to your healthy layers, right? Keeping the hens productive and stress-free, what that looks like, what kind of things we can do. So again, this is just a quick one-pager that you can reference. And it's about feeding your laying hens, the light and how it affects your egg production, because those things all go hand in hand. A lot of us want to say, hey, because it's wintertime, that they should be laying, that they should, it shouldn't matter what I'm feeding them, that it shouldn't impact that, right? Well, there's a light factor. Yes. Will they slow down? Are they molting? There's many factors. So again, in that healthy layer document, I'm going to talk about that. Treats, scratch and balance, what that looks like in what you can utilize. Besides just your layer feed. And then the stress, health, and environment. Just overall, what things need to look like from your nesting boxes to the actual hen house itself. So Again, I'm just trying to put some quick things together so everybody has something to reference, because I know it can be overwhelming, right? It can be overwhelming for us to sit and listen to Rachel tell us all these different things and why do I have to do this? Why is this so important? Well, for us to have that healthy flock to then enjoy, we have to pay attention to what our birds are doing. No different than we pay attention to how our children are acting. Are they sick? Because sometimes your children are young and they can't tell you. Your chickens, I don't think, are talking to you, but they might be. If you have those kind, you need to let me know, and I would love to get some of those chickens. The next thing is eggs to table. So collecting, storing, and using your farm fresh eggs. So I have a quick little one pager for that as well. So and just what that looks like, whether to wash them, whether to not wash them. Why is that important? Why is it, what does that look like? Because there is a lot of information out there today, and there's a lot of conflicting information. So again, I wanted to put something together from my farm to be able to share with you on what we've used over the years, what's worked for us, and then being able to utilize somebody like Rachel with Fertrell that can give us some actual data, some information that has science backing behind it to help us with our chickens. So the question is, where are you going to start? Are you going to start with the chicken or the egg? It's always the question, right? What's the most important? Well, the whole process is the most important. So when we look back,
do you recommend that even for, say you get layers as chicks to do the same thing, that same protocol, so that you want to repeat those timing for,
Sure, yeah.
for that?
Yeah.
So again, whether it's broilers, whether it's layers, we're going to utilize that same strategy that she talks about for the yogurt or the raw milk to make sure we have a successful flock starting out. Because that's the last thing we want, is to have issues that way. So again, we'll talk about these items, and Rachel did a great job going through this with us. So we're just going to finish out watching this with Rachel. And if you have any questions, by all means, get a hold of us. We'd love to help you. And you'll have to check out our website, because we'll have some of these quick one-pagers to help you reference and help you with your chickens, ducks, or turkeys.
Thanks for visiting at the Feed Store Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube so you never miss an episode. Follow us online and check out our full lineup of products on feedersgrain.com. See you next time.